Hello, I'm Robin. Welcome to Bookspin. Today I'd like to talk about Night of the Crabs by Guyan Smith. That's this book, published in 1976. So I got my first taste of this author earlier this year when I read his pulp sci fi horror novel, Bats Out of Hell, which, for all its flaws, I thought was a thoroughly entertaining read. So I was curious to try another of his creature features, and so I decided to read what is perhaps his best known horror novel. That's this book. So, Night of the Crabs went on to become a long running series, and it drew quite a cult following over the years. So, I thought this would be an intriguing book to read. Unfortunately, it didn't quite reach my expectations or the level of enjoyment I got from Bats Out of Hell. I don't think this is such an accomplished book. Uh, this is, in fact, an extremely trashy pulp horror novel. It's perhaps the trashiest thing I've ever read. But it does have its entertainment value. And a quick look at the blurb on the back cover gives you an idea of what to expect. So let's take a look. The Welsh coast basks in summer tranquility. Then the drownings begin. But not until the monstrous crustaceans crawl ashore, their pincers poised for destruction, does the world understand the threat it faces. A seafood cocktail for the strongest stomachs. So that gives you an idea of what to expect. This is not a book for the faint-hearted. There is a lot of gratuitous violence going on here. Um, this nightmare scenario that unfolds, it takes place in a scenic coastal community in Wales, which is very attractive to holidaymakers. And at the start of the story, we have this young man and his girlfriend who are in this resort town. They go missing on the beach, and they're believed to have drowned. But of course, the truth is far more horrific than that. And this man's uncle is a marine biologist working in London, and he has a hunch that something is not right, and he wants to find out the truth. So he sets out to this town in Wales to investigate. And it's not long before he finds out what's going on, and he comes face to face with this terrifying horror, the likes of which the world has never seen. It's basically an army of giant crabs. Okay, uh, hundreds of crabs periodically emerge out of the sea during the night. They're especially attracted by the full moon, and then they prey on humans. They attack and eat people. They're very menacing and brutal and vicious. So they have a voracious appetite. They feast on human flesh and then they return to the waters. And these creatures, no one really knows where they came from or why they're doing this. Um, they're also seemingly quite intelligent beings, and they are led by an alpha male, which the biologist names King Crab, who can issue commands to his subordinates. And they're very much an army. They are disciplined, they follow their leader, and they are ruthless and efficient, and also seemingly invincible because their shells protect them from everything, even gunfire and explosives. And working together en masse, they can defeat anything or anyone. So once the threat of these crustaceans becomes known to the public and the world, uh, the professor has to work with the authorities to try and find a way of defeating the crab army. So he puts his life on the line. He uses all of his wits and his courage and his professional expertise to try and find a solution and neutralize this threat and avenge the death of his nephew. And this is by no means an easy task. That's pretty much it as far as the plot's concerned. This is a fast paced, action packed survival horror story with no shortage of grisly violence. It's got quite a high body count. It's pretty entertaining. And if you're a fan of pulp horror, pulp sci fi, classic B movies, creature features, things like this, you will probably enjoy it, but don't expect anything intricate or surprising or thought provoking. This is not um, a literary masterpiece. Okay. There's also a romance side plot, which I think is absolutely ridiculous and doesn't really add anything to the story. So we have another guest at the hotel that the protagonist is staying in. This young woman who, for some reason, instantly falls head over heels for the professor. And what ensues is some extremely awkward and stilted sex scenes, which are cringeworthy to read. Uh, so, I mean, in a way, this is part of the appeal, isn't it? There's stilted prose, gratuitous violence, awkward sex scenes. They all add to the trashy appeal of this book. I can't honestly say it's a good book or it's well written, but it is entertaining for what it is. Um, in fact, my main gripe with this book is not so much the fact that it's not well written. It's more that no explanation is ultimately given for where these crabs come from or why they attack humans. So the sci-fi reader within me wants to know more. The closest we get to an explanation is a very brief conjecture from the professor where he postulates that um, underwater nuclear experiments in another part of the world might have caused these crabs to grow massive. And that's it. So we don't really get any scientific resolution to this issue. Um, and I can't really help but compare this book to the last Guyan Smith book I read, Bats Out of Hell, which, although these two books share some similarities, um, in hindsight, Bats Out of Hell I think is a much better book. It's better written overall, it has more interesting narrative structure, more interesting characters, and it's also the plot makes more sense. It's an epidemic apocalypse story. It feels like a better developed SF horror narrative. I did review that book a few months back. If you want to know more. Anyway, Night of the Crabs falls short of that. Um, so if I'm going to give it a star rating, it's difficult to say. I think I think I'm going to say 2.5 stars. Okay, so it was a bit disappointing, and it's not a very well written book, but it's still entertaining. If I was going to be more generous, maybe I'd say 3 stars, but I'm going to be strict. I'm going to say 2.5 stars. So it's a fun read, despite its flaws. But I would definitely recommend Bats Out of Hell more. Clearly, though, this book got a lot of love over the years because it spawned a plethora of sequels. I've got the list of sequels here in front of me. We've got Killer Crabs, The Origin of the Crabs, Crabs on the Rampage, Crabs Moon, Crabs the Human Sacrifice, Killer Crabs the Return, The Charnel Caves, and the short story collection Crabs Omnibus. And if you have a look for some of these titles online, you will see that most of them are out of print, and secondhand copies sell for crazy prices. So they're difficult to get hold of and they're expensive. So clearly there is a demand out there. Anyway, um, that's Night of the Crabs. That's all for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon.